Hello, welcome in.
Tom.
Hi.
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. What do you prefer?
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay. Let's grab a cup of coffee. Because this type of meetings or roundtables is something we are doing first time, and the discussion is probably in the main plate. So I would like to welcome you all in this first Spectrum Roundtable, which we plan to organize at least once a year, maybe during the beginning of the fall semester. And I would like to say a few things about the work that the Institute is been doing for a few years, 5 or 6 years. And so far we have managed to have a variety of initiatives to further disseminate the spectrum of teaching styles, with a little help, of course, from you, but also with a lot of help from our board members, the executive director, and now the new assistant director that we have, Alexander Barton. In a previous slide, in a previous presentation or meeting we had online, I was just checking, my previous slides, and I realized that before a couple of years, when still Sarah was alive, we had a promise somewhere about gathering people somewhere. And, we like to keep our promises if possible. We are really happy to see that Sarah had the chance to see what we were planning and what we were doing. And one of the big initiatives that we now have is the international conference that we organize next year in ancient Olympia. It's a sacred place for me. It will be held within the structure of the International Olympic Academy, May 6 to 9, 2026. And as you already know, the Institute will cover accommodation and food, and of course, transportation from Athens to ancient Olympia. All this information can be found in our website. There is a specific website for this conference. And one of the things that I would like to mention or notice right now is the decision that we very recently had with the organizing committee to extend the deadline for abstract submissions from 15th of October to end of October. So as to give the chance to more colleagues to participate. We have started receiving, of course, abstracts from colleagues and friends. And as you all know, there will be a limited number of participants. We hope that we will not leave anybody outside this gathering. So we hope to see each other in ancient Olympia next May. Now, I would like to leave the floor to Autumn and Maria.
Thank you, Nikos. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. The Spectrum Institute has established multiple initiatives to promote spectrum research and the application of its instructional styles of teachings. On the screen, you can see a table with all the initiatives and the application window dates. So the workshop series will reopen in 2026. The 2026 Research Grant Program will be open since November 1st until March 30th. And the 2027 Sarah Ashworth Graduate Student Assistance Scholarship Award will be open since February 1st until July 31st. We have 3 initiatives that are open all the year. Spectrum videotapes, episode grant, conference grant, are Spectrum Educational Curriculum or MOOC. And we also have, the Outstanding Journal Publication of the Year Award that will be open in January 1st until March 1st. As Nico said before, the Spectrum Conference, the deadline to submit an abstract to the first Spectrum Conference is October 31st, not 30, 31st, sorry. And finally, the deadline to submit an abstract to present in the Spectrum Symposium that we do at AIEC in June 2026 in Taiwan is October 10th. So you can find more information about these initiatives on the website. And now I give the floor to Mark to continue with the announcement of this year's Sarah Ashworth Graduate Student Assistance Scholarship Awards winners.
Okay, this was the first year that we initiated this particular piece here with the Sarah Ashworth Graduate Students Scholarship Assistantship Award recipients for 2026. This is funding for graduate students at the doctoral level and or master's level who are pursuing physical education, teacher education in that area. And we this year had 3 awards that were given. The first one was the advisor, Professor Kelly Simonton from University of Wyoming, and his student has been identified at this point, and her name is Megan Lee. That particular award is at the doctoral level, so it will be granted funding for 4 years. 2 awards were given at the master's level. Professor Jamie Brunsden from University of Memphis was one of them, and Professor Kane Hanishi from Western Colorado University was the other one. And in both cases here, they are still working towards getting that graduate student for this particular award. We hope that this coming year, for 20, or I should say in 2 years from now, in 2027, that we will have a number of more applicants for this particular assistantship award. Really looking forward to receiving applicants from universities, advisors from around the world. Go ahead, Nikos.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Now, this is, as you understand, a very important initiative that was launched during 2025, and it's about the future of the spectrum of teaching styles. We all care about this, I suppose, but within the framework of the Institute, it is our mission, actually. And within our mission is also to discuss issues and topics that might interest people. So before a couple of weeks, we asked you to provide us with a variety of possible topics that could trigger interest and discussion. So we gathered all these topics and we organized them in three main topics, I would say. So the first one is related with reimagining Moston and Asgo's spectrum of teaching styles for future physical education and exploring various philosophical and theoretical perspectives through this framework. As we look at this topic, of course, we care about the fidelity of the implementation of the spectrum theory of teaching styles. At the same time, we need perhaps to continue the discussion about the development of this theory. We all know that the spectrum is a continuum of teaching styles, ranging from teaching styles where most of the decisions are made by the teacher to teaching styles where most of the decisions are made by the student. I think it's a brilliant idea. Whoever thought about it? It is essentially about shifting decision-making power from teacher to learner. However, at the same time, we need to look, or somehow we need to take into account what is happening around us. I mean, in today's learning environments, where especially technology is shaping and changing things, and also other ideas or concepts in relation with collaboration, creativity, personalization, or other concepts develop and bring perhaps new challenges or perspectives to teaching area. All these perhaps create new challenges to the ultimate goal of teaching and education. And for example, one might ask, what is the goal, the ultimate goal of teaching today? Is it about knowledge transfer? Is it about skill building? Is it about creativity or something else? So I have just sample questions for you that we can discuss openly and freely, of course. And these are three sample questions here, and I would like to give the floor to anyone who would like to express his or her opinion in any of these questions. And we open the discussion to our audience. So please go ahead, raise your hand, and be our guests.
I think I'll start if you don't mind.
Yes, Jamie.
Well, hello everyone. Great to see everyone. My name's Jamie from the University of Memphis. I have so many thoughts about this. I've been thinking about this a lot over the past couple of years. When I look at the second question of potentially what feels outdated or what feels relevant, in my thinking, I found the spectrum theory to be a very valuable framework for teacher educators. It helps us to think about the complexities of teaching and learning. And I think as teacher educators, it gives us a lens with which to encourage a diversity of teaching styles. One of the complexities that I find is that I think as teacher educators, we like to keep things very broad and inclusive so that we can accommodate for the different contexts that our student teachers go into. But I think obviously the challenge linked to that is that we can't just remain broad. We have to make decisions. We have to identify what is the particular aim or educational ethos within school A, and then select a couple of styles with which to use to support the achievement of that goal. So I think for me, I think obviously the spectrum is 60 years old, I think, as of next year. And so obviously so much of the theory is very constant, very, very relevant to today. But I think what potentially needs to evolve or be updated is how we use and think about the spectrum, whether we understand that it's a very broad conceptual framework, but how can we elevate it now to make it more applicable for the children and teachers that we're serving today? So just some thoughts.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Just to continue the discussion, and of course, I'm just keeping some notes and questions. Donetta, yes, please.
Not a direct off of Jamie's good comment, because I do think it's critical that we think about the breadth has always been an issue with the depth of our students' knowledge, and we continue to try to figure out how to do that better. I always tend to think about those styles that teachers always report using, but actually none of us think they use, those independent learning kinds of individualized learner. And I just wonder how AI moving forward might help us envision ways that students truly could guide their own learning with some level of input from us, whether that's a coaching tutor kind of. Now we can, maybe not me, but I know many of you already know how to build your own specific chatbots for specific purposes that the student or an employee or consumer can interact with. And I wonder how that might influence how those styles, particularly towards as I think about them towards the right on the spectrum, could be influenced by these technology changes that are sweeping across, it seems, everywhere.
Thank you very much, Donetta. Kanai, yes, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Kanai Haneshi. I am also from United States, Western Colorado University. So I just want to go off the comment from Donetta. That's kind of I was thinking about when I was reading this question of what is the learning today and what's the teaching today. So I happen to be recently the task force, the committee at our institution of how to embed or implement AI in higher ed. So I guess that's why my mind was there. But so from that perspective, I think it's more and more important for us to teach critical thinking or AI literacy or critical decision making more than knowledge or memorization, that type of things. 'Cause I think it's technology, it's gonna give them or help them that part of it. So more now I think we need to teach more to the student that so then all these knowledges and tools you have, how do you identify which information is correct, or if information is help them to excel their learning, that type of more advanced thinking is, I think it's has to teach nowadays, because those students now they have so much information coming in and there's a lot of them, but now they have to have the tools or skills to how to use those knowledge and skills, knowledge and skills. So that's what I was kind of thinking about that too. And then another part I was thinking about with spectrum and then teaching and learning now in the future is more and more, I think we need to be mindful about individual student lived experience, and then they are all different. So that how do we include or embed or what's the word, implement their individual lived experience into our teaching learning is kind of needs to be more into our thoughts when we are planning and teaching. So that was kind of my mind in there when I was thinking about these questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanai. Kelly, yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Simonton from the University of Wyoming in the United States. Thank you for hosting this. I think this is a great opportunity to chat a little bit. A couple things that come to my mind that are different that I think compared to what some of the other folks have said is I feel like pre-service teachers and in-service teachers have been kind of inundated with lots of strategies and language, and it gets kind of convoluted with what we know as like the true versions of the spectrum of teaching styles. So I feel like, for example, the miscommunication and the misunderstanding of things like cooperative learning as opposed to reciprocal style, is one example I think about in the pre-service teacher development, that students aren't really able to dissect and understand how those are separated and how they're aligned. And I think that causes a lot of confusion. Similarly, in the US, I know a few of us are still proponents of models-based practices. And so I've noticed, models-based practices, what are the functions of those, and isolating specific teaching styles that only align when I teach with that model, as opposed to the theoretical framework of spectrum, which means any teaching style can be used at any time with any content with any learner, as long as it achieves the goal of the learner. So I think the inundation of a lot of different concepts are confusing to pre-service teachers and in-service teachers. And so I wonder if there needs to be more conversation on trying to assist in aligning where the spectrum fits with other contemporary ideas of teaching strategies, including models, including cooperative learning, things like that. And I also believe, are we going to be okay as ambassadors of the spectrum to be flexible in what the styles look like? Do they have to be the fullest version at the fullest intent and delivery? Because we know, like with models-based practices, we've really shifted to be okay with, well, it's not the full version, but based on your context, you aren't able to do the full version. I think that matters. And then that plays into pre-service teacher development. I believe in the research I've done, we're seeing that there is a developmental appropriateness for learning the styles for the pre-service teachers. So inundating them too quickly into really complex styles can deter them from wanting to do them moving forward. So I'm really looking at it from a pre-service teacher lens, so forgive me, but those are some major concerns I've noticed in teacher training. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I give the floor to Jamie, just a couple of notices, and just to ask something that I've noticed here based on what you are saying so far. And the question is for everyone, of course. So from what I understand, you think that there is or you understand that there is a problem in understanding the spectrum or on behalf of the students. And have you ever noticed, or are you able to, let's say, focus on what is the main source of their, let's say, confusion or mistakes they are doing in their understanding? This is for everyone, of course.
I'll jump back in, Nico, so that's okay.
Yes, Kelly.
Yeah, I think there are a few issues, but it's not unique to the spectrum in terms of a pre-service teacher lens. It's having enough time to learn about the styles, practice them, get feedback on them, put them in authentic settings, get reflection and reaction from real world students, not peers, not college classroom level things. I mean, I think what I've seen is it takes a minimum of 5 to 10 attempts before a pre-service teacher thinks that they can do a style, and they're still not very good, obviously, and so I think that time and depth, with the wide breadth of styles to practice makes it really challenging to tackle in a realistic way. And we only get our pre-service teachers really for 2 years, 4 semesters. So I think that's a major challenge. The other major challenge, like I said, I think is they're getting a lot of information all at once, and I don't know if they understand how does the style embed itself in these other concepts that you're learning in contemporary education. If I start teaching a student about reciprocal style, the first thing they think is cooperative learning, and we know that that's not the same thing. But once that happens, that confusion causes a lot of challenges. So I just think maybe in terms of like where is an issue and how do we maybe redefine some things, is is there a better approach to training? Do we need to investigate better approaches to training to embed the styles, to isolate them and teach them, the students, about them, but also recognize how do they fit in contemporary things that pre-service teachers are learning? And what is the developmental phase for a first semester pre-service teacher? Learning all like 11 styles is not a great approach, yet we're kind of forced at times to offer one class that just covers the styles, and I think that's limiting. So I don't know, those are my initial reactions to your prompt.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Another question I'm having here as we speak is, the spectrum is, like you said, almost 60 years old. Forgive me, I remember my age, but anyway. But in this case, we still have new ideas in the area of pedagogy. New ideas rise, and new theories, new approaches sometimes, and many times this creates confusion. Are we able to spot these theories that create the confusion right now? For example, you mentioned the model-based approach that is getting spread widely. And do you think that this, for example, creates sort of confusion in relation with the spectrum of teaching styles? Because those who published whatever they published about the model-based approach, they neglected actually the spectrum of teaching styles as a pedagogical model. So what do you think? You all.
I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I think the question, obviously, Nico,
Yes.
goes back to the original question and then also builds off Kelly's point too. I think that the first point that I'd like to clarify is when you read about spectrum theory, especially in the original books, and especially when it was identified that there were 11 styles, the thing before that was that there are at least 11 styles, not that there is only 11 styles. So I think that's really important, obviously, in clarifying that. The second thing, which specifically builds upon Kelly's point, is, I think since the 80s, we've moved towards a more of a medical model or evidence-based model of teacher education, which essentially means that we are introducing strategies, we are teaching content or pedagogy based on the data, as opposed to how it was originally or before that, which was very humanities oriented. It was very philosophy centered. And so, students were getting access to the study of philosophy, for example, and that was being used as a means to guide, students' wonderings about what is the aim of teaching, what is the aim of education, and subsequently, what can I do in the classroom to align myself to that? So I think because of that, there's less opportunities for creative engagement with the spectrum, as opposed to a more scientific engagement. So, well, this is the style, this is the general definition that we use, as opposed to creating the conditions for, say, well, if we want students to work together, what sorts of things do we have to do, right? And we can kind of potentially build that. So those are two thoughts that I wanted to share on that. But I think, what are the challenges? I think students are in an information age where they can get access to all sorts of information without any challenges. All the information's available online. They can use AI now, as Kanai was alluding to. And so I think potentially trying to direct students to what we believe is the most appropriate information that they need to access to, knowing that we can't stop them engaging with all sorts of information and goals.
Yes, thank you very much, Jamie. This is true, and this is actually how people learn. We cannot isolate our minds from getting impact from other sources and ideas apart from the ones that we try to focus in during our lectures or classes, I suppose. Yes, can I?
Yes, thank you. Going back to the model, how this spectrum teaching styles fits into the model-based approaches, that some of scholars, the spectrum scholars, like myself and Dr. Brandon Suhi, has been actually presented, or no, we should, I guess, publish it too. I think we need a little bit more information about how these spectrum teaching styles fits into the model-based approaches that it's been used. That resource might not be enough there, but that's how I teach here. I actually try to teach students how each of, spectrum teaching style fits into the model-based approaches. So we teach both, and then then spectrum teaching style actually, helpful. It's actually a helpful tools to break down each model-based approaches, like each lessons. So, but maybe in terms of resources lacking out there is there. That again, some of us has presented about the topic. For example, I present about how spectrum teaching styles can help breaking down the teaching games understanding model. But I don't think that the enough resource or publications are not there yet.
Okay, thank you, Kanaya. Yes, Lance.
Hi, I'm Lance Bryant. I'm sorry, I'm Chris Malore. Lance is right here beside me. Kelly, when you were talking about like we only have 2 years, we don't have enough time necessarily, that kind of just made me think of, what is our shared technical culture within our actual place? Like we all have colleagues right now that are not on this call that we know necessarily do not do the teaching styles. So my thought is the challenge is like we don't have enough time to do it on our own. But then we also probably have colleagues that aren't necessarily espousing this pedagogy. So one thought is, how could we get somebody that, it's kind of the old adage of teaching a old dog new tricks, right? Maybe some of the things that we're doing with PE teacher or students is working, but how can we get more buy-in from our colleagues, right? If we have 2 years to do this, they have their general education requirements at the beginning of the first 2 years, the second 2 years, then we got them. If we're trying to do that on our own, those 10 attempts that Kelly's talking about is not going to happen. It's going to be very tough, and it's going to take more attempts unless I have another colleague with me that's willing to espouse the same pedagogy, talk about these things throughout multiple classes, opposed to having it in just one course. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Now, as we continue this discussion, new questions, I think, rise in my head. For example, do you think that when we teach the spectrum of teaching styles, do we overanalyze each teaching style? What do you think? Because
Can you clarify that? What do you mean, like overanalyze? What do you mean by
overanalyze? In order to describe each teaching style, there are so many, characteristics, so many elements and things you need to discuss in order to and explain, of course, to the students. And students need to understand all this and connect all this with a framework that we call teaching style, for example. So do you think we should start a bit, because I think now we are discussing more on how we teach the spectrum of teaching styles more. So what do you think? Should we avoid over analyzing the spectrum of teaching styles, or what do you think? Yes, Kelly.
I think your question speaks to one of the points that I was considering earlier, was that to what degree does a teacher or pre-service teacher need to deliver the style in its purest form, in its fullest extent? Because that is the way that we teach it. However, I have noticed anecdotally in my teacher education program, the first time that students deliver any style, and I don't care if it's I usually only focus on A through H mostly, they have to be able to deliver the style in a very, and I'm going to use a word that's going to trigger some of us, a watered down version of the style to gain comfortability of it. I saw Chris. Yeah, Chris, don't freak out. Like for example, the first time that they use a inclusion style, they may not have a task sheet associated. They may not offer more than 2 options. It may only be for one task that's tied to another task. But like having them dip their toe in the water, for a US colloquialism, is really been necessary, as opposed to having them jump in the pool and do the full version. And so I really think there needs to be more research and understanding on what are the phases of learning an individual style. Because simply giving them the instruction, showing them some examples, having them plan a full style and implementing it within a task or and multiple tasks in an authentic setting, I think can be too much in some ways for pre-service teachers. So are we okay with not the full version, and what are those developmental steps that teachers really need to gain comfortability? Because I think using the full style at the fullest extent, the first time you try it, I think we might be setting teachers up for failure, and that maybe ties into that over analyzing right away. Just a thought.
Very interesting thoughts, I would say. We need somehow to keep on with time. So I would like to raise just a final question in relation with all this, because I think a couple of colleagues said it, or a bit earlier. What about AI? What do you think, I mean, about the capacity that AI is providing to us as teachers or to our students? And how do you think that this may shape things in the future? What do you think? So far, I mean, for example, we are aware that AI is capable of substituting a teacher. We can actually train an AI model with the capacity to teach the spectrum of teaching styles or implement the spectrum of teaching styles. But the models that they are using now, for example, in AI, which is deep learning, is totally away from our understanding of how these AI models work within the framework of deep learning. So nobody knows the outcome, really. So what do you think? I think it's a big challenge, but I don't know. I would like to hear your thoughts. Yes, Jamie.
I have so many wonderings about this topic, as we all do. Number one, it could be an opportunity for someone within the Spectrum Institute to create a Spectrum AI, which is intended to support pre-service teachers or in-service teachers. I'm not going to be the one to do it, but that's, throwing it out to someone else. There's an emerging literature called It Depends Pedagogies. And one of the challenges we face is that, teachers have got so many things to consider, and subsequently, pre-service teachers or many in-service teachers can potentially struggle to make actionable decisions because they're like, well, it depends if this, it depends on that. And I think, if in obviously understanding the constraints of teacher education, we have, some people say we have 2 years. I think it's more closer to a year and a half for most institutions in the US. In other nations, it's something else. In the event where there is less time to teach about the technicalities of the teaching styles, does that mean that teacher educators focus more on the developmental channels and figuring out that, and then using AI platforms to help them make actionable pedagogical decisions about how to achieve that developmental channel, for example? But that's one idea, potentially.
Thank you, Jamie. Kanai, yes, please.
Yes, I don't have a concrete idea of that, but I think it's as an institution, this area is something that we should not avoid looking into it because AI is gonna evolve more and more, and then people's gonna teachers and pre-service teachers start thinking about how we can embed or use AI into our teaching styles or teaching or learning. So, but there's not research out there. And then I think we as an institute or like a group of scholars that if we want to be on to be the pioneer of teaching and learning, implementing also like the technologies, you know, some of us here or like collectively needs to start doing some research on it because I think it's everyone is wondered, but this is still yet there's not many research has done it yet in our field. At least I think this is something that we should think about it collectively.
Can I
Okay,
add one comment to that really quick?
thank you. Sorry, I cannot hear who is
It's
talking.
Tori Shiver. Sorry, I'm at
Okay.
University of New Mexico in the
Hi,
States.
Victoria.
Hi. I just wanted to. We're still developing a lot with AI at UNM, but we have started to consider how we're implementing it into our coursework. And I currently teach elementary methods, which includes developing knowledge in the spectrum. So one way it has been useful as a one-off tool is I have the students, of course, create lesson plans for each of the styles. And because of their previous acculturation, they really have zero, like they've had practice style or command, their whole training prior to entering into the college setting. So they hit roadblocks when it comes to trying to think about anything creatively. And AI has been really helpful in letting them expand that thought. So they'll prompt AI to help them come up with ideas for various topic areas, and that's for the psychomotor domain, but also cognitive, affective, and social. And then the next level we do is, for example, if they have AI create a lesson plan with one of the styles, we have them go in and critique the lesson plan to see if it fits with the spectrum. And they seem to learn it better based on their critique because, they're not creating it and then I'm critiquing it. They're analyzing someone else's style. I haven't been collecting any data on anything like this at this point. And I should be, I guess. But I think that that's one way to consider how it might be used as just a simple tool as opposed to, something we have to kind of face as a challenge. It's been helpful.
Okay, thank you, Tori. Thank you very much for sharing all these thoughts and ideas with us. I will try to sum up at the end some main thoughts at least. But for the moment, I would like to give the floor to Mark for the next topic. Mark?
Yes, I will just say one comment in regard to many comments that have been made here. We have to start somewhere when we teach the spectrum. And typically we start with, and it doesn't matter, or if we're teaching a particular models-based practice type, we need to start somewhere. And wherever we start with what with the styles are the landmark styles. So when we teach the kids, teach our pre-service teachers and so forth, we utilize those landmark styles for them to better understand each style. And then over time, as they understand the styles, similarities, differences, then we can begin to move forward into the canopy. And I saw Ben had identified or had listed in chat a comment about that. We're always going to have the problem of the kids thinking that, man, we can only do the landmark styles. Unless we as educators along the way, in a real thoughtful manner, talk about, you know what? We teach in a context. And when we teach in a context, changes have to be made to particular styles or to particular models-based practices. Those are completely acceptable. But, we just need to understand that. So, yes, we teach to the landmark styles, but in essence, I would argue that much of our teaching happens under the umbrella or within the canopy of a given style or combinations of styles. Is that okay? Absolutely. So, all right, let's move on to our second topic, and that's the spectrum-related research, scholarly collaborations. And I indicated, next slide there, Nichols, is during this segment, we're going to talk about or invite discussion on the spectrum-related research scholarly collaborations that are happening perhaps just within your university or across different universities within a given country, or even better, across the world, globally, collaborations that are occurring. I've identified a few questions there that, hopefully these questions trigger some of your thoughts. We don't necessarily need to keep to these questions, but I would like to open the floor to the general question of, so what's happening with spectrum research in terms of you doing collaborative things with other folks in your university, in your country, across the world?
Sorry, just gonna interrupt for 1 second. Before we get to that, Mark, Nikos, Maria, I sent you a message in the chat. If you could address it when you have a moment, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's go ahead with discussion.
Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah. Hi, Mark. I got one question. I think this question will be associated with your proposal discussion question. So my first question will be, I'm working at the University of North Dakota. We are in a college town, so a lot of in-service teacher working on try to maintain their teacher license with continuing education. So this is why in our university we are holding summer conference annually to working with in-service teacher, providing offer credit hour for their continuing education, so they can maintain their teacher license. So a lot of teacher asking specific workshop during the annual conference, summer conference. So this is why one of my question will be, does spectrum interesting to working like myself within our program to providing some teaching style, spectrum teaching style specific workshop to serving in-service teacher on their professional development. So this is one information I'm trying to talking with you guys. But of course, there are a lot of colleagues working on spectrum, right? So maybe I'm thinking based on the questions you are proposed in here from the slides, I'm thinking, is that okay? If colleagues not in the US, across the whole world, right? Interested in working in spectrum. So is that okay? We're working for a statement, then advocating practice spectrum teaching styles. then we can try to publish in somewhere, try to advocating spectrum teaching styles. Yeah, just my 2 cents. Thank you.
I think, Harry, that yes, the Spectrum Institute is not conducting individual workshops. I don't know whether we will do that in the future. It's to be, discussed as we move forward. We have been creating avenues such as the curriculum that we've developed, the online, which is almost complete now after 2 years. The MOOC courses certainly can be utilized by whoever to do workshops. But that's a good question, and maybe in terms of a better question for this particular topic area is, what might these workshops look like if we collaboratively, across 2 countries, colleagues in 2 different countries got their heads together and talked about. So what would we be delivering? What would that look like? Just an idea.
Can I?
Yes, we are actually currently doing the collaborative research with so myself at the Western Colorado University and Dr. Carter Smith, University of Utah, Alabama, and then another colleague from the Maryland, that United States group, with the colleague, several colleagues in Japan. So what we are doing right now, and then we will present this about details in the the webinar that we usually have, but in Japan, there are not much spectrum, and teacher doesn't know about spectrum, even university teachers. So we are like translating the spectrum English textbook into Japanese, and then we are inviting the colleagues, including myself, traveling to Japan to educating pre-service teachers and in-service teachers, and then university teachers about the spectrum, and we are actually helping in-service teachers to implement spectrum teaching styles at their schools and collecting the data. So I think it's like a sharing knowledge, or more like, sharing expertise into the area of the world that where spectrums are not well known yet. So that's the collaboration work we are doing. And again, we will present about that much more in depth at the webinar we have. And then second question before I go, before I proceed, is that I'd be interested in, if anybody else here interested in, to do some sort of collaborating research about AI and the spectrum teaching styles. Again, like I have big interest on that AI, and part of the AI group at my current university, but I think it's like many scholars, not in our area, but overall higher ed and then other areas, are interested in how to implement AI into our work, and then do research, and then maybe for our in-service teachers too. So if any of you are, here are interested in doing that, I'll be interested in doing collaborating research for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kane. Other collaborative research ideas to share, or things that you're doing?
Go
I
ahead,
don't know
Danetta.
whose hand was next, but I'll just jump in since I think maybe I was next. One, I'm super excited about the conference. So a quick thank you to everybody who's on here who's having some role in that, because I think that will be a real fertile ground for us to meet in person and to see what comes out of that. A second is a request for help on research that I work with Pamela Kalina a lot on this, and we're trying to find anybody who has used our survey. So many of that will show up with the Google Scholar kinds of things. But if you have published perhaps in journals that are not in English, or are conference papers or anything, anybody who's used Pam and I's survey, if you could contact me, that would be awesome. And then I'll tell you about a new thing that Pam and I are doing. She has some international graduate students. And so We'll be using our survey in Korea and Kuwait. And I'm most excited about the fact that her students are going to be able to do spectrum reviews of literature in Korean and in Arabic. So I think pieces of the world perhaps that aren't as well represented previously, who are doing good work in those areas, but maybe English speaking scholars haven't had access to it. So hopefully we'll be able to bring that to the group with some insights into how cultural influences may or may not be working out with teachers' awareness of and use in the styles. Thanks.
At this point, Danetta, that there are a lot of folks around the world that are connect up to the instrument that you created, you and Pam created. So that should be good.
I'll jump in really quick on that note. So Danetta, I think I had contacted you and Pam about 2 years ago, but a research team, myself, Maria, Yana Serpas, Jamie Brunsden, Chris Malore, we're doing kind of a 20-year follow-up cross-cultural comparison to the work that you did when looking at the use and abilities, perceived abilities in multiple countries. We started data collection last year. We've been able to get a few countries at a decent sample size, but we're recruiting more. So anybody on this call who is not from the US, we can pay you money if you can help us get teachers to complete the survey. So let us know. We're collecting data again this year, so we're looking on a 20-year follow-up cross-cultural comparison for in-service PE teachers. Another thing I wanted to mention is we will be hopefully publishing our first round of data on the MOOCs, so pre-service teachers' perspectives of the Spectrum MOOCs on how that's influenced their ability to use the spectrum of teaching styles. Tori Shiver and I have been working on 2 projects. One of them is, what does a Style F training and focus training look like in terms of pre-service teachers adopting Style F into the teaching games for understanding or tactical games model for pre-service teachers. So we're collecting that data now, and we'll be hopefully writing it up soon. And as well as an affective perspective. So how you teaching pre-service teachers how to use the spectrum to teach affective goals. So CASEL considerations on that. And then lastly, one thing I'm super excited about that we're doing with our team, and Tori's helping with this too, we did a 2-year study on pre-service teachers learning the spectrum. And of course, we looked at how it helped them technically. So how did they improve their ability to implement a variety of teaching styles? But something really cool happened. Not did it only help them technically, it changed their professional identities and their motivations. As they gained teaching styles awareness, they had a new sense of who they were as a professional. And we believe that reciprocal relationship could establish a stronger sense of being a teacher and a stronger motivation to do the right thing, for lack of a better term, or to do the proper styles once they become a teacher. So we're diving in a bit more about how learning the technical aspects of the spectrum actually change the psychological aspects of a teacher and their identity and their motivation. So a few things we have going on. If anyone's interested in collaborating, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
Jamie's hand was up next.
So I'll just talk very quickly. I put something in the chat. I think someone mentioned, it could have been Harry, to talk about, well, how are we structuring workshops potentially? Just to kind of give some context, I'll be hosting what I'm calling a Spectrum Walk workshop in a couple of years' time. And the point of that is to bring in a collection of graduate students together and to create an experience where they go and walk through a series of classrooms and they get to observe styles in action, whether it's with teachers who have been trained on the styles or have had no training whatsoever, to see essentially explore what is going on. And that's a very, I'm trying to use what's called an instructional rounds approach, where we're kind of working with potentially a problem of practice to guide the workshop. But you know, that's just one example of something.
Thanks, Jamie. Was someone else jumping in?
Shraddha has her hand up.
Go ahead, Shraddha.
Yeah, hello. First of all, thank you. It's great to be a part of this roundtable discussion. I am Shraddha Naik from India, and we teach spectrum, especially focusing on from style A to H as of now. Since last couple of years, we introduced spectrum in the bachelor's degree since 2015. But I feel the students are not, my students are not still able to use the spectrum or use the styles unless we force them to use them or try. So what we need to do is we have to pick up certain number of students who understand the styles easily, and then we request them or we guide them to implement the styles in their practice teaching. This is one experience that I would want to share. And secondly, we have started, uh, conducting few studies wherein we've tried to find out, despite of undergoing theory classes, they still lack in the knowledge. And we try to assess the knowledge. It's not as good as it should be. And of course, we also found out that students who had a fair level of knowledge couldn't implement the styles. And we're still trying to find out the reason why. Second study, a short study that we conducted was about their attitude and perception about using teaching styles. What we found out was the school context factors are such that children find it really, my students find it really difficult to implement the style. So we are trying to come up and with some strategies to help them try the styles in their practice teaching schools. And recently, my master's degree students now are completing the MOOC courses that are there on the website, and they have really now started understanding what spectrum is all about. So I hope that master's degree students will at least be able to utilize the styles in a couple of their classes, and also come up with many more questions and researches. And the new PhD scholars are trying to embark upon the studies based on spectrum. Number one will be, we will be creating a community of practice and talk and discuss about spectrum with the help of all of you. And we will try to find whether the kind of community of practice that we create helps them understand spectrum better or not. Because the thing is, it's all in English, and then it's difficult for some of my colleagues to understand it. So we will have to, really put it in our language and teach it to them. This is number one. And another student is going to try to, of course, create instructional videos based on the styles. And we are going to need your help about that as well. So this is what we've been doing for last couple of years. And it's, I know it's not full-fledged effort, but we're trying our best to, study the spectrum and go ahead with it. And in India, I'm not very sure how many people are aware of spectrum, but in my institute, we're trying our best to teach spectrum. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Shraddha. And it sounds like you have a lot of things going on, actually. And, that's great. It's awesome. It's going to take time. And certainly others out here who are listening to what's going on, reach out to Shraddha if you have some interest in doing some collaborative pieces. And certainly folks here from the Spectrum Institute are trying to work alongside you too, Shraddha.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kane.
Yes, I was thinking about, thank you. I was thinking about the last question, that what can we learn about the spectrum from these collaborative initiatives? I think if we can do some sort of research across the world, including the countries from African continent or like a South American continent, And then if we do some sort of like cross-cultural research, I think we can then more clearly, not clearly, but we can determine the adaptability of spectrums in across the cultures. And then I think that is important because the worlds are getting smaller thanks to the technologies and then all these other things. And then like the adaptability of spectrum teaching styles across the different culture languages, the finding out that might be important. And then we are strong about that because spectrum teaching style is very worldwide. Yet there are some areas that we are less represented. I think it's more like countries from African countries or like South American countries, you know, but it'd be very beneficial to do that going forward.
Thanks, Kane. And I want to now, I mean, this is great discussion and we could continue, but we do need to move on to the third topic area. Kane's comments, I think, are a nice summary of, you know, there are things out there that we can do collaboratively, and hopefully we'll get some more initiatives going here. So I'll pass to our third topic today. I'll pass you over to Robin and Min.
Hi, thanks, Mark. This is Robin speaking. I'm so excited to see so many friends participating together. For the second term, we'll approach the discuss of a relevant scholarly collaboration projects and actions from the perspective of the spectrum of teaching style. I think it's so rich. And in this team, we hope to start from the perspectives of the inclusion and the effectiveness of physical education curricula, and further explore together what role of the spectrum of teaching style can play in relation to these two goals. And of course, in society with different historical context and cultural tradition, the ways in which inclusion and effectiveness are defined or reconceptualized may vary greatly. Let's make the discussion of this topic relatively open and full of possibility. And Nick, maybe next slide. Hi, thank you, Nicholas. Do you know of any academic or practical project that have applied or cooperated the spectrum of a teaching style with the aim of promoting inclusion and effectiveness in physical education? And what specific innovations have been planned in these projects to enhance inclusion and effectiveness in physical education? And the third, and what have the actual outcomes been? So next, we will open the floor for everyone to free share your idea or perspective. I would like to invite you to share your perspective. Then, please.
So, here is Min speaking. So okay, Kelly.
Min, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just want to make some clarification about the questions, but go ahead. Yeah.
I'll add one thing that I mentioned earlier, and I think Tori is leading this, Dr. Shiver, and she can chime in here in a minute. if she's available. But we've started looking at, the historical data suggests a lot of psychomotor and cognitive development for K-12, what we would call in the U.S. K-12 students, primary and secondary, for learning psychomotor skills and gaining knowledge in PE. But one of our primary interests has been looking at K-12 students' development of what we call their affective goals, or maybe personal and social development. And one of the things for US PE teachers is they like the idea of teaching social emotional learning skills, personal skills, social skills, but they often lack a diversity of instructional abilities to do and teach such skills. And so Tori and I have been working with some after school settings where we've been trying to focus on SEL development, or what we call SEL development, and really giving teachers a toolbox for teaching towards those affective skills. And I think that's an area of need in contemporary times. We don't have all of the data yet on the influence and impact of for those students, but we've seen some really promising data that shows if teachers have a deeper toolbox to teach directly to the affective domain, they tend to get more of the outcomes that they want, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach. So I think that might be a unique contribution beyond the psychomotor and cognitive domains, the affective and SEL domains. Tori, if you have anything you want to add to that, I just jumped in kind of on our behalf there, but if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kelly. That's so social and emotional learning has been an area of research that I really focus on, and the spectrum bridges really nicely with that. So, for example, I did do a study I presented at ASEP, I think 2 years ago now, where we use the spectrum of teaching styles to provide examples of how to incorporate social and emotional learning, because it gave the CASTLE framework has multiple categories like self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision making. All of those things connect really well to these various styles. You can really apply them in a practical way. And our pre-service teachers have a really difficult time understanding how to actively implement SEL. It's much more of an abstract idea to them than the psychomotor domain, right? Like how to throw a ball is very clear to them. How to teach how to recognize your emotions is much more challenging. But we are able to use the spectrum to provide, they can provide examples that are more concrete for them to understand and implement with their students. So I've used it kind of as the missing puzzle piece to connect that cognitive dissonance to the SEL application. And we're continuing collecting data, the ones with Kelly, as he described, and then with our previous pre-service teachers, and expanding a little further on that. We haven't started any specific project, but at UNM, we're a Hispanic serving institution, and we have largely Hispanic and Indigenous population in our space. And traditionally, physical education within the states kind of overlooks variety of cultures. We're very white, Eurocentric focused in many ways. So we have been considering how we might be able to use the styles to not only, incorporate SEL, but to expand even further to embrace the cultures of the environments that we're in. So that is to come. I'm not sure, what our findings will be or exactly what that will look like, but we're pretty excited about it over here at UNM.
Thank you. And I think I have a small question about to guys, and the social and emotional learning is have components about responsible decision making, and how to promote the students they make the responsible decision making. Use our spectrum teaching style, right? Hi, Kelly.
Yeah, that's the main focus we've been trying to target. Like, if you want to teach a student how to problem solve, well, using command style might not be the ideal approach for them to flex those muscles cognitively or socially. And so, what are the other styles that can help guide them to those learning outcomes? Another one that we've been tackling is like try to get students to demonstrate empathy and to recognize others' emotions or their reactions and influence on others. And the styles lend themselves really well to teaching those concepts that go well beyond, you know, how to throw a ball, how to jump rope, etc.
Yeah, self-direction relates to self-check. There's just a lot of ways we can cross over that make sense to the students, which is great.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Wei Mao has her hand up.
Yeah, wait.
Oh yeah. Hi, this is Wei. I'm a student from UND. So first of all, thanks to the institute for supporting. I think I benefit a lot from our institute, and I want to share one of our ongoing project. It's also focused on the social emotional learning. We try to integrating the teaching style into sport education model. To promote student social emotional learning and some game performance and other learning outcomes. So we are especially interested in how reciprocal, guided discovery, inclusion styles, etc., can support their social emotional learning. So for what we will do, we are just try to design some instructional tools or the materials that based on the different characteristics of the teaching style, and then we try to support student coach to guide their team practice. So we will provide some task sheet or checklist so they can plan, they can teach, and also reflect more independently. And also we want to see the long-term goal. How can those teaching styles support our student to be a quality student coach? And also how can they make the decision, gradually develop their decision-making power in our PE.
Yes, thank you, Wei. So we have another someone
Yeah,
raise their hand. Yeah, okay.
I wanted to add something too. Obviously, very rich discussion. I'm based in Memphis, Tennessee, and the nature and the history of the city with which I'm based. So many of my students are affective oriented too, very deeply committed to the concept and ideal of justice, and so I found that in listening to colleagues, I couldn't agree more that the styles provide pathways or tangible kind of examples, strategies, if you will, for them to start working toward that. I also wanted to add something too, and it goes back to the theoretical expansions. I do a lot of work on human flourishing, and essentially we are trying to help young people achieve their potential in life, teaching them about that, number one, but also creating the conditions for them to pursue it on their own accord. At the very foundation of that theory, from a very theoretical standpoint, is the development of character. And obviously, colleagues who were talking about SEL, character theory broadly relates to teaching about specific traits across multiple domains. So we have moral traits, respect, courtesy, for example, intellectual traits, multi-perspectivity, intuition, diligence, for example, civic traits, determination, courage, resilience. And then civic traits, compassion, civility, communication, so on and so forth. And so I do feel like the way in which we could talk about the styles themselves, it could be coupled quite easily with this character language, and in turn help achieve or at least promote discussion about affective goals within lesson plans, and in turn in classrooms.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, we have Yanis here raise his hand. Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yanis.
Hello, everybody. My colleague, me, and my colleague Sakis Kolovelonis, we are running a project granted from the Spectrum Institute, and we are going to examine how the self-check teaching style can affect executive functions and performance of elementary students, and how this how the self-check will affect the performance. And so we are now recruited the physical education teachers who are going to deliver the intervention. Some of them we will deliver the self-check teaching style, some of them the practice teaching styles, and the command teaching style. And of course, there will be oh, okay. And now we have designed and the lesson plans, 6 lesson plans. We developed the checklist and the fidelity list. We have organized the questions that we collect, and we're going to run 2 studies. The first study will include the acute effect of command and the self-checked styles on student executive functions, performance calibration and sport performance, and situation and interest. While they will taught basketball skills such as passing, shooting, during a single lesson. And the second study will examine the effect of self-check practice and a comparison group. We will have another a comparison group as well with the combined style, and we will develop 6 lessons in which the students will taught basic skills from basketball, as dribbling, passing, shooting, and then we have pre and post tests to examine the development of execution function skills and the performance skills. I think in a few lines I describe what we are going to do to run in the forthcoming period. We expect to finish this in the next December, and hopefully we'll present some of the findings or all the findings, if it's possible, to the Spectrum conference next May.
Yes, thank you, Yanis, and thank you all for your ideas. Yanis, do you have anything to add?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
I understand.
Yeah,
Okay.
as you know that we just discussed about the function or the effect that we are applying the spectrum of teaching styles in PE or in sports environment. And as we know that we back to the Mosten's book, that in the developmental channels, he was not just mentioned about the psychomotor and cognitive domains. He also mentioned about the social channel, the emotional channel, the moral channel. So we believe that when we discuss about inclusion and effectiveness in today, we cannot overlook the consideration of teaching ideas and actions that includes the spectrum of teaching styles. So when as you just shared, I can see that in the discussion of the inclusion and effectiveness, a key question was raising here is when working with diverse groups of students, at what moments and under what situation should we make the most appropriate decisions? That means what teaching styles or other out of the 11 teaching styles that we can apply in our teaching would be the question that was your further exploration. So I think that would be the end of this theme. Then I will pass the time to Mark and Nichols.
Okay. Thank you very much all for your contribution to today's first roundtable. I think we had a very interesting discussion, and we exchanged very interesting and I would say triggering ideas. I mean, while I was keeping notes, at the same time, I was writing down some questions because of the reflection I had in many of your thoughts. So I'll try to sum up a bit, let's say in a couple of, in maybe 2 minutes, if you allow me. So first of all, I would like to say that the book that the last version of the book is what we all follow. And this is a classic. So of course, we continue the discussion and we try to better understand how all this that we call the spectrum of teaching styles can be implemented or be taught better to our students. I think we share a lot of common points with our colleagues here. It is a necessity, but it is also a fact that technology, but also other developments, perhaps in science, create new challenges. For example, the AI or new pedagogical models or approaches that we try to understand in our area. It was very useful exchanging ideas about topics and possible collaborative projects. I would say perhaps that this might be also a chance to include this in one of our sessions next May, where we will have live meetings, of course, and I hope I'll meet you all there. As a challenge, I think, for the third topic, from what I understand, the general idea is how to use the spectrum of teaching styles in order to implement new or emerging concepts and approaches. For example, SEL, like Tori and Kelly mentioned, for example. This is all interesting to me, and I'm really happy to share this passion with you. At the end of this roundtable, I would also like to ask my colleague Mark Byra if he would like to make some closing comments or remarks. Mark?
More than anything, it's great to have a venue like we had today, where we're able to share our research activities that are going on. I know that it's difficult for those of you who don't have English as a main or a language that you use a lot. Difficult to talk to each other, but some of you have done a great job, and I love it when I hear from you. I hope that our conference in Greece, where we're face to face, will generate more talk. And I'm sure it will, because I just find it's a whole lot easier when we talk face to face or share ideas face to face. And certainly we're going to have a number of sessions where we will be talking about, where do we go with the spectrum from here? What kind of ideas do we want to pursue? And so forth. So, as a starting point, I think it's really nice to have a session like this. Thank you all for contributing in the ways that you have. And I really look forward to seeing many of you in Greece in a year from now, and then certainly in Taiwan as well with ISEP.
Yeah. Thank you.